Sean here, CEO of Talk2 and co host of this podcast. We don't normally do this, but on some of the episodes moving forward, we're going to be introducing some ads before, during, and at the end of each episode. We promise we'll keep things short, but my company, Talk2, has been saving veterinarians like you time every day. And I wanted to share some testimonials from our users. Listen to them or fast forward. We'll be sure to keep it brief.
You're listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast.
You're listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast. My name is Sean Wilkie. Along with my awesome co host, we interview the innovators of this space every week. Ivan, please kick us off.
Hey, I'm Ivan Zach, and I'm excited to introduce our guest today, Alex Voda. Alex is a co-founder and CEO of the Cat Health Company, a VC-backed clinical stage company focused on age-related feline diseases. He holds a doctorate in cellular and molecular medicine from the University of Oxford and has years of experience in pharma industry. He is also a husband, father, and a cat whisperer. Alex, welcome to the show. Thank you for finding the time.
Thank you very much, Ivan, and really nice to see you. And Sean, you guys have an amazing podcast. One of my Romanian fellows, Sebastian Gabor, was also on the podcast for 2 episodes, and I didn't know until I started listening out to your podcast, and I independently knew him from a friend. And yeah, you have legends like Rachel Shepard, Dr. Eve Hanks, and so on. So I was super ecstatic to talk to you guys.
Thank you. Well, you have very interesting. First of all, so with all your degrees and husband, father, cat whisperer, you are a doctorate, and I'm looking at you on camera, so clearly you know something about longevity. First question I have: can we do something with Sean? Because over the 6 years of podcast, I didn't age, and he's kind of behind on that. So how do we do that?
I mean, yeah, I'm actually pretty old. All the VCs think that I'm a dropout teenager or something.
They do make you older. The fundraising usually does age you well. That's maybe why Sean
That's
is
what happened to me. Yeah, exactly.
okay.
Those 2 rounds were very hard.
Okay. Well, on a more serious note,
In all seriousness, what is a cat whisperer?
So I love cats. I've always been, well, both a cat and a dog person, but I tend to have a preference for cats just because they're smaller, they're easier to maintain, they have a very precise personality, they're not hyped about everything. They're not a Labrador. That's what I like about cats. And I like Labradors for not being cats, but yeah.
okay. So on longevity, so the topic for today is pharmaceuticals research and development and longevity. Now, with cats specifically, because that's your focus, I assume, are you adding another life to cats or you're extending the life? Because we know there's 9. Did you discover how to do 10? Or what is the research? Tell us about it.
So just to dive back into why cats for longevity. Cats are this very interesting model where you have some of the generalized mechanisms, but you also have some of the specific mechanisms that are shared with other species that we looked at a lot, like mice. So, as you know, most of mice diseases are cured. Not all of them have translated to other species or humans. For example, for sleep dysregulations during aging, it was pretty clear that most mice medicine wouldn't translate well to humans. Humans are active mostly during the day, mice are nocturnal. It turns out that some of the medicine that works really well in mice and doesn't in humans, so the companies died, their assets may work well for cats without us investing a lot of money to bring these assets to the market because they already have all this research. Cats are crepuscular, so they're close to being active mostly at night, but dawn actually and dusk. So we had all of these technical and pharmaceutical reasons to think that cats are actually a very, very good model for not just research, but also like a market itself, where you can bring things that have been widely researched, just not properly sold or brought to the market.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is that you uncovered that potentially cats are good models to research certain conditions and you're focused on longevity. How do you build a business around that? Because that's a really cool thesis, I think, for doctorate. But how did you convince those VCs to invest and what is the business model and where are you taking this company?
So, to some degree, the path was already beaten by other companies like Loyal. other companies before us convinced investors that there's, a path. As long as you invest for a couple of years, there's a path to getting drugs on the market that can prolong the lifespan of dogs, for example. What we've done is try to get better targets, try to get better drug repurposing as well, and other things that haven't been exploited by those startups to our investors. And we had a lot of due diligence with them. So we've managed to attract some really cool names. One of them is former high level executive at Novartis, Adrian Grossu. He's a partner at Stonehaven right now, doing mergers and acquisitions for animal pharma companies. We've also received an investment from NIVC, which is a biotech venture capital firm focused on the pet sector, from Anna Skaya. Maybe you guys have heard of her. She had this awesome company called Basepaws. So we wrecked some legends, and it was slow. It took a lot of time to show them the previous literature, the research we've done in the labs and computationally. And so it took probably, I'd say, half a year to convince many of these people. And once they've come in, more and more people have realized, this is rigorously vetted and a proper pharma plan.
What if introducing one new tool could dramatically improve the entire culture of your clinic? That's exactly what happened for Dr. Donald Howe and his team after adopting Talkatoo. Here's what he had to say.
Just creates more efficiency all throughout the hospital. It was a culture shock to the staff. But once we started doing it, they thought they was going to have more work, but now they actually have less work. I really appreciate this app because it has changed my hospital for the best.
Get full access to all of Talkatoo's powerful features for your first month for just $1. Sign up today at talkatoo.com/VIP. That's Talkatoo, TALKATOO.com/VIP. That's awesome, Alex. So I got a question for you. What gets you excited when you jump out of the bed in the morning about running this company? And tell our listeners a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the thing that gets me excited is that we're the first cat longevity company. There's a couple of dog longevity companies like Loyal. Everyone's talking about them. Everyone's emailing them. Can you cure my dog? He's like super old. One eye doesn't work, whatever. He's bumping on the furniture. But like, there's no cat company. There was Epiturna and it unfortunately died. And other than that, Rejuvenate Bio, JetFlow Biosciences, David Sinclair's Animal Biosciences, all of these companies focus on the dog space. And I think cats are a huge international market, like, especially in the country I come from. Basically, 1 in 2 households has a cat. So it's a very exciting mission to think whether, you could have a little bit more time with your companions.
So, what are those things? I mean, this is a huge area of the human healthcare as well. There's, people at certain age, they start focusing on what can we do. And I know that what's the name of the guy? I keep forgetting, who had a big exit and then he focused like his entire thing right now. He invests all of his money to stay alive.
Brian Johnson, I think. So it's the guy with the biomarkers, and he also has more weird things about tracking sleep, and not just sleep, but other awakenings. And
Yeah, heard him on a couple podcasts. So, what are those kind of similar things? Because I know that he was talking about experiments with the somatotropin. Then he was, all of these things that people are talking about, metformin having a different effect on longevity. Like, what are those things that are translatable, and what are those things that you are now discovering that, at least at the molecular level, are similarities or things that will be interesting to research in the near future?
there's quite a bit of overlap because Brian Johnson is pretty smart. He's picking a lot of things that have already been researched. So, for example, taking metformin is a no-brainer. A lot of people realize that if you improve insulin and glucose tolerance and so on, you're probably going to live longer. It's not good to have type 2 diabetes, even if it's pre-diabetes, right? It's better not to have it for longevity purposes. He also does a lot of crazy things that I have no idea if they actually work. But I think there's quite some overlap there, and he's picking on the main well researched things out there. What I would say is that it's also like an image thing in my mind, because he's doing 200 interventions on himself, and it's like a n equals 1 experiment. So how do you know which one of the factors was influencing his biomarkers or his muscular fitness and so on? You don't know. So I think clinical trials, the way they're run at Loyal or the way we run it at the Cat Health Company or Rejuvenate Bio, etc., that's the way to really understand the field, not n equals 1. But it's cool that people, are passionate about this, and I think Brian is cool.
That's amazing. So we know what gets you excited. What's your guys' mission? Like, what are you trying to accomplish and by when?
Yeah, so we're a clinical stage company, and that's what we wanted to become more than a year ago. Everyone told us it's kind of crazy to go clinical stage. Usually it takes 3 to 4 years for companies to get to that, and they have to raise multiple fundraising rounds, but we've been super efficient and fast. And my dream is for us to be able to generate a lot of data in parallel. So, I hope if you ever travel to Bucharest, and as soon as we open the US lab as well, we're going to show you around. We want to generate a lot of RNA-seq proteomics data, of drug perturbation screens, and so on in parallel, not to have one drug or one asset or three in the pipeline at once. We want to explore as many options as possible, but at the same time, not in the Brian Johnson way. Rather, recruiting 50 cats to 100 cats in every single one of the trials and learning faster about what shifts longevity and health span.
That's amazing. So our audience is made up of a bunch of veterinary professionals, team members, consolidators. If everything goes well, what does this mean to their business and by when?
I think it means that you're going to have a lot more consultations with the pets, right? Like if you have a patient that ages normally, for example, in CKD, there's very little that you can do. Maybe dialysis, but it's not sustainable long term. So the cats usually die abruptly. Within a year of, advanced CKD diagnosis, they're dead, usually 6 months or less. So that means you're also not seeing that cat. That means it takes some time for the pet owner to emotionally recover from grief and loss. And I think many veterinarians are pet owners themselves, and would rather have their companions live longer. And some programs like Loyal are meant to be a universal prophylactics. So you give them to all Great Danes and all large breed dogs. And you give them throughout their lives or towards their late adulthood or so. And that's a continuous, prescription. There are also other drugs that we think are going to work for particular age related diseases, where you give them that drug only when they're close to a particular type of disease. And then they go off the drug once they're fine. And then they have the same rest of their life, right? They will get another disease, they will have problems later on, etc. But at least, you're delaying the onset of this one and you're prolonging their lifespan to some degree. And I think it's going to mean that maybe, for example, there will be less cats dying of CKD. And it's still going to be a lot of work on the veterinarians to figure out exactly what therapeutics to give to these cats once they're approved. Because they're not going to be universal. Like, they're not going to cure all types of CKD, right? Like fibrosis versus inflammaging or other sort of subtypes of damages that happen during CKD are different from cat to cat. And there's going to be some difference in how you diagnose and treat them. But I think it's going to be a better future for both the veterinarians and the pet owners.
So, 5 years from now, when this is wildly successful and everything in your vision worked out, what does it look like? What does the company do? And what's that big vision looks like?
I'm going to be on holiday where everyone else is working on the human therapeutics for the next decade or so.
Good answer. This is a good entrepreneurial answer. Unfortunately, I'll let you know that even if you have an exit, you're now infected with this condition called entrepreneurship. You will continue. There's no vacations.
Well, right now it's very much hands-on work. So I think as the company, grows and so on, it's going to be less me trying to get this approval shipped to the next team and go figure out something that didn't work in the lab or help move the 500 kilogram machine around. It's more going to be like me talking to you guys all day, maybe on multiple episodes about how more and more drugs get approved. So yeah, I think that's 5 years from now.
You can take our job and become the host of the podcast. It'd be great.
That's awesome. I don't think I'm gonna do as good a job as you guys. I don't have a huge network.
If you do something for 5-6 years, you get good at it. It's, if you just practice and practice and practice. But listen, we ran out of time. We always do. I've got a couple questions for you before we wrap up. First one is a YouTube video, a TED Talk, something that you found inspiring along your path that you'd like to recommend to our audience.
I really like all interviews that Celine Halioa gives from Loyal, but I also like the presentations from In Silico Medicine. Alex Zavrankov is like a legendary pharma founder, and yeah, he talks a lot about longevity. I would recommend that.
Interesting. And the second question that we always ask, is there another innovator in our domain that you would recommend for this podcast?
Yes, he's super young, super passionate. Nakoapo. I don't know if I'm botching the pronunciation. It's Nakoapo. He started Sundial Therapeutics. It's a startup where they focus on cell therapies for age-related diseases in dogs. And it's basically taking placental cells that are able to help the mother integrate in her genome and so on, in her organs and so on, to help her, using those to integrate into non-pregnant dogs to sort of like improve their organismal function. And I think, the scientific data there is crazy cool.
Thank you so much for listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast. If you want to hear about our new episodes, please follow us on any social media channel. Also, you can check out our website at veterinaryinnovationpodcast.com. See you next week.
Thanks for sticking around to the end of the episode, and thanks for being here. As I mentioned earlier, Talkatoo has a special offer for listeners of this podcast. If you're curious about how it works, Talkatoo is a suite of AI tools that makes note-taking faster and easier. You can record your entire appointment and get a SOAP note within seconds, completely automatically. Just review and approve. That's all you need to do. We also help with call summaries, discharge instructions, and many, many more. All of these things are done within seconds. Get full access to all of Talkatoo's powerful features for your first month for just $1. Sign up today at talkatoo.com/VIP. That's Talkatoo, TALKATOO.com/VIP.